right, and thank you everybody for joining us. Wherever you are, we do appreciate it. And we get to talk to some pretty amazing people here on the show. And joining us right now, we have a theoretical astrophysicist and the author of The End of Everything, Astrophysically Speaking, Dr. Katie Mack, who is joining the show. Doctor, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
I want to talk about a few different things here with your book, but maybe to start off at the beginning and going to the very beginning, your book is about the end of the universe, essentially, the end of everything. But I wanted to talk to you about the Big Bang and what we know about the beginning of everything and how that influenced this book.
Well, what we know about the beginning of the universe is we know when it happened. It was about 13.8 billion years ago. And we know that the universe went through a phase of being very hot and dense and sort of filled with this energetic plasma. And that's what we generally think of when we talk about the Big Bang. The universe has been expanding and cooling since that time. And by studying how the universe started and how it's been evolving, we can start to learn something about how it's going to end, what's going to happen in the very far future.
Now, you talk about 5 different theories of that. Can you talk about the process of coming to those theories?
Yeah, so in the book, I talk about these 5 different ways, which are really the kind of 5 that are most talked about in the scientific literature. So there are a set of different possibilities for the future evolution of the cosmos that are based in what we know from our current observations, our experiments, and our telescope observations about the nature of the cosmos and the nature of how physics works in this universe.
And with these, these 5 different ones that you've got, and again, we've got an article up, and I highly encourage everybody to read the book. This is fascinating stuff. Of those 5, which one do you think is the most likely and the least likely to happen?
Well, the most likely, I think, is something we call the heat death, which is sometimes also called the big freeze. It's this idea that the universe will continue expanding and expanding forever, and it will get to a point where the universe is basically empty. It'll be a cold, dark, empty, lonely place where we won't be able to see distant galaxies anymore, and everything will kind of just fade away. That's probably the most likely. Maybe the least likely, based on our current data, is something called a big crunch, where instead of expanding forever, the universe would stop its expansion and everything would come crashing back together. And we'd end up in that sort of hot, dense state again. But it would be actually a little bit worse because there would be more radiation in the universe from all of the stuff that's ever been shining, all the starlight and everything like that. And that radiation would be compressed. The universe would get really, really hot and would end up sort of incinerating stars toward the end of that process. And that would be a very dramatic and very violent way to go. But we think it's not very likely because the universe's expansion is actually getting faster. And so it's hard to see how that would stop and turn around.
As we see a lot of advancements that have really been happening in the last several years, in particular in science, space exploration, space study, what are some of the big things that have happened that have helped you with your studies and that can help us learn more about the cosmos?
Oh, well, I mean, one thing is the discovery of dark energy. It's something that's making the universe expand faster. We don't know what it is, but we can see the expansion of the universe speeding up. And that's really changed how we see the universe and how we see its evolution over time. And just recently, there's been some really interesting work looking at gravitational waves. So we've been able to actually see or sort of detect or feel the vibration of space itself as black holes are colliding in other galaxies. And that's given us a new way to look at the universe, a new way to see how it's changing over time. And that's telling us a lot about gravity, how gravity works, and just about how our universe is evolving. And that's going to be much more interesting over time. We're going to get more and more data, and that's just a new window on the universe. So it's a really fascinating thing.
Is there any one piece of technology that you think is the most valuable right now when studying this?
I think that it's really a combination of things. We're just getting so much data from so many different kinds of observations, new arrays of telescope, new surveys of the sky, and new particle physics experiments that are also giving us insight into how physics works and possibly how the universe will evolve. So I think the most valuable thing is that we're looking in a lot of different directions using a lot of different kinds of technology. There's not just one thing that's going to give us all the clues.
Well, it's really fascinating stuff that you have here. And again, I want to remind everybody too to pick up the book. So, The End of Everything, Astrophysically Speaking. And Doctor, thank you so much for being here and talking about this. It's really exciting to see all of your work and just laying it out there and thinking about what the possibilities are. Appreciate you being here on Digital Trends Live.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun to talk about the end of the universe.